The the ward was quiet. Machines hummed softly. Lights blinked in steady rhythm, and the smell of strange medicines floated in the air. The alien nurse walked slowly down the long silver corridor. She had seen many wounded soldiers before from many races, but today something different waited for her inside the last room. They called it the human. The nurse had read reports about this species. A violent, reckless race from the edge of the stars. They fought wars with machines too heavy for most species to lift. They survived on planets others called unlivable. To her, the human was only a patient, nothing more. Yet when she stood before the sealed door, her hands felt cold. Why, the door opened with a soft hiss. Inside lay the human soldier. His body was large compared to the slim frames of her kind. His skin looked strange, soft yet scarred, like it had survived fire and storm. Tubes ran from his arms into alien machines. His chest rose and fell, slow but powerful, like each breath carried a secret strength. The nurse stepped closer. At first, she saw only another injured warrior. But then her sharp alien eyes noticed something unusual. The wounds were deep. Claw marks, plasma burns, cuts that should have killed him. Yet his body was healing. Slowly, but with a will that defied reason. His heart beat strong, too strong. She pressed a scanner against his chest. The readings made no sense. His cells were alive in a way she had never studied. They repaired, adapted, resisted. It was as if his body refused to die, even when every law of biology said he should. The nurse leaned closer. "Strange creature," she whispered to herself. The human stirred. His eyelids trembled, then opened slightly. His eyes, so different from hers, looked directly at her. Not with fear, not with confusion, but with something else, something heavy, something that felt like defiance. The nurse froze. No patient had ever looked at her like that. Most were weak, helpless, begging for life. But this human, even lying broken and half dead, stared at her as if he was the one in control. His lips moved, but no words came. Only a sound, rough and low. Still, it was enough to make her take one step back. His eyes closed again, and he sank into silence. The nurse checked her scanner once more. The heartbeat was rising, not fading. Rising, like a hidden fire burning inside him. She frowned. Was it an error? No, her machine did not lie. Something inside the human was fighting harder than any medicine could. She touched the wound on his shoulder, careful and curious. The skin was closing itself. Slowly, painfully, but closing. That should have been impossible. A sudden thought chilled her. What if this was not healing? What if it was something more? For a moment, she imagined a galaxy where thousands of these humans marched across battlefields, wounds closing, hearts beating stronger, eyes filled with that same burning defiance. She shook her head. No, just imagination, she told herself. But her hands trembled. Hours passed. The ward remained silent, broken only by the hum of machines and the human's steady breathing. Yet the nurse could not relax. She kept watching him, waiting for something else to happen. And then it did. When she reached to adjust one of the machines, she noticed movement, a sudden twitch from the human's arm. She thought it was random, just muscle reaction. But then the hand clenched into a fist. Slowly, firmly. The nurse's chest tightened. The human was unconscious, heavily sedated. He should not move. Yet he had made a fist as if ready to fight even in his sleep. Her mind whispered a warning. This species is dangerous. More dangerous than we know. The nurse turned away, trying to calm her thoughts. But her eyes returned again and again to that hand, to the closed fist, to the steady rise and fall of his chest. Something inside her wanted to run. Another part wanted to stay and keep watching, because deep down she knew this was no ordinary patient. This was the beginning of something the galaxy was not ready for. The silence of the ward grew heavier. The nurse felt as if the machines, the walls, the very air were waiting, watching. And in the center of it all lay the human, broken, bleeding, but unyielding. A soldier who should have been dead. A creature who should have been helpless, yet somehow he was neither. The nurse whispered again, softer this time, almost in awe. What are you? The human did not answer. But his body gave the reply she feared most. His heart beat harder, his fist clenched tighter. And the silence of the ward turned into the sound of a warning the nurse could not ignore. Because if one human could do this, what would happen when the galaxy met them all? The hidden strength, The alien nurse could not sleep that cycle. Even after leaving the ward, the image of the human's clenched fist haunted her. In her long years of service, she had seen species with claws sharper than blades, scales harder than stone, and minds filled with cruelty. But she had never seen a body that refused to surrender like his. When her shift began again, she hurried back to the ward. The human still lay on the bed, wrapped in tubes and wires, yet something felt different. His skin had more color, his breathing was stronger. The machines confirmed it. His healing had accelerated overnight. Her alien mind tried to deny it. "Impossible," she whispered, reading the scanner. "Your blood. It fights like an army." Each drop of human blood carried a strange force. Not just life. Something stubborn. Something wild. His cells seemed to remember the pain, then grow harder because of it. Wounds that should take weeks were closing in days. The nurse's heart pounded. She leaned closer, studying his arm, where fresh skin now covered what had been deep burns. It was not smooth or perfect, it was rough, scarred, but it was real. This human was rebuilding himself. A low sound escaped his lips. The nurse froze. His eyes flickered open again. For a moment their eyes locked. Hers cold and trained, his burning and unbroken. He whispered something. The words were faint, almost lost under the hum of machines. "Not finished." The nurse stepped back, breath caught in her throat. Was he speaking to her, or to himself? Before she could answer, alarms flashed on her console. The human's heartbeat spiked. Muscles tensed. The body on the bed moved with sudden violence, fighting against the restraints. The nurse rushed forward. "Stay still. You are not ready." But the human's body disagreed. His arm ripped free from one of the straps with terrifying force. The machines screeched warnings, unable to keep up with his surging energy. The nurse activated the sedation system, sending a heavy dose into his veins. Yet the human kept struggling. His eyes opened wider, glowing with raw defiance. For a terrifying second, she thought he would rise completely. But then at last the sedation pulled him back into heavy sleep. His body sank again onto the bed, chest rising in slow, steady waves. The nurse stood frozen, heart racing. No other species could resist that level of sedation. It was meant to calm even the most violent prisoners. Yet this human had fought against it, almost breaking free. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the silence. "What are you made of?" The ward's door opened with a metallic hiss. Two alien doctors stepped inside, their faces cold with authority. "We heard the alarms," one said sharply. "Is the specimen failing?" The nurse turned quickly, hiding her fear. "No, not failing. Surviving." The doctors exchanged a look. One leaned closer to the human, scanning his chest. The device beeped in confusion. "This is unnatural," the doctor muttered. "His cells are adapting. They are learning. Each wound makes him harder to kill." The second doctor frowned. "A dangerous discovery. We must report to High Command. They will want to investigate further." The nurse's throat tightened. She knew what investigate meant. Dissection, experimentation. The human would be carved apart until no mystery remained. She bowed her head to hide her expression. "As you command." The doctors left, but the nurse did not move. She stared at the human for a long time. She had sworn an oath to heal, not to harm. Yet she also knew defying orders meant punishment. Her eyes returned to the human's face. Even asleep, he looked fierce. A scarred soldier far from home, but still fighting. She wondered if he understood what awaited him. Suddenly his lips moved again. Another whisper escaped, so soft she almost missed it. "Earth remembers." The nurse's blood ran cold. He was not lost in dreamless sleep. He was dreaming of something greater, of his people, of his world, of a promise. She stepped back, her mind filled with fear and awe. If this one soldier carried such power, what would an army of them be like? What if Earth truly remembered and came searching for him? For the first time, the nurse felt not like a healer, not like a scientist, but like a witness standing at the edge of something vast, something unstoppable. The silence of the ward returned. But this time it was not calm. It was heavy with warning, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Because inside that room a single human was teaching the galaxy a lesson it was not ready to learn. Pain did not break his kind. Pain only made them stronger. Whispers in the dark. The medical station floated quietly above the ruined battlefield. From the outside, it looked peaceful, a circle of steel wrapped in silver light. But inside, whispers began to spread like fire through dry grass. The human had survived. It started with the guards. They stood outside the ward, hearing the alarms that had shaken the silent halls. One guard swore he heard the bed restraints snap like twigs. Another whispered that the human had stood up, glowing with strange energy. None of them had actually seen it, but the story grew larger with every telling. By the time the tale reached the mess hall, the human was no longer a patient, he was a monster, a beast who refused to die, a warrior whose blood was fire. Some called him a threat, others called him a weapon, and a few, in hushed voices, called him hope. The nurse heard these whispers as she walked through the corridors. Wherever she passed, voices lowered. Eyes followed her. Everyone knew she had been the one closest to the human. She kept her face calm, but inside her thoughts were storming. She remembered his words. Not finished. Earth remembers. What did it mean? That night, when the station lights dimmed and most of the staff rested, she returned to the ward. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the machines. The human lay still, but his presence filled the air. The nurse moved closer, silent as shadow. She checked the scanners. His body was repairing faster again. His blood pressure strong, his mind active, dreaming. She leaned in, curious, and then she heard it. A whisper, not from the machines, from him. His lips moved, forming words in his strange language. At first she could not understand, but slowly the translator implant in her ear caught the meaning. Hold the line. Never surrender. We rise again. The nurse shivered. These were not random dreams. They were memories, promises, orders. This human spirit was not asleep. It was awake, pushing his broken body to heal, to fight again. She reached out almost without thinking and touched his arm. His skin was warm, too warm, like a fire hidden under flesh. For a second she felt the strange pulse of his strength. It made her step back in fear. Suddenly, the door behind her hissed open. The nurse turned quickly. A guard stood there, face pale. You should not be alone with it, he said quietly. The others are talking. Some want to end him now before he becomes too strong. The nurse's chest tightened. End him? He is a patient. The guard shook his head. He is not a patient. He is a warning. High Command fears what he represents. If one human can do this, imagine an army of them. Do you want to see that day? The nurse looked back at the human. His chest rose and fell, each breath stronger than the last. She whispered almost to herself. Maybe the galaxy will see that day, whether we want it or not. The guard frowned. Be careful, nurse. You're starting to sound like you admire him. He left, the door closing behind him. The nurse stood in silence, her heart pounding. Did she admire him? Or did she fear him? She was no longer sure. She turned back to the human. His fist clenched again in sleep, as if answering her question without words. The nurse whispered softly, You will bring storms to this galaxy. The lights flickered. The machines beeped, and the human's whisper returned, clearer this time. We are coming. The nurse froze. His eyes were still shut. He was not awake. Yet his voice carried a weight that filled the room, as if the very walls listened. She stepped back, fear twisting inside her. She had treated many wounded across the stars, but never had she felt this before. This sense that she was standing not in front of a patient, but in front of history. In the darkness of the ward, the nurse understood a truth she dared not speak. The galaxy did not fear the human because he was strong. The galaxy feared him because he was not alone. And somewhere far away, the rest of his kind might already be listening. The awakening. The nurse entered the ward with heavy steps. The whispers outside had grown louder in the last few cycles. Some staff called the human a danger. Others called him a miracle. She no longer knew which side she stood on. The machines glowed faintly around the human's bed. His breathing was steady, his skin no longer pale. He looked less like a dying soldier and more like something rising from ashes. She leaned closer, checking the scanners. That was when his eyes opened. Not half open like before, not a weak flicker. This time they opened wide, clear, focused, alive. The nurse froze. For a long moment, the two of them simply stared at each other. His gaze was sharp, steady, unshaken by pain. It was the gaze of someone who had walked through fire and returned. The human spoke. His voice was rough, but his words were clear. You've been watching me. The nurse's heart skipped. She had not expected him to speak so suddenly. She stepped back, but his eyes followed her. "You think I don't know?" he continued. "Every time you touch the machines, every time you whisper when you think I cannot hear." I know. The nurse's throat felt dry. "You should not be awake." The sedation, he gave a faint smile. Not warm, not friendly. A smile filled with defiance. "Your drugs slow me down." "They don't stop me," the nurse could not reply. She only watched as his hand twitched, then slowly lifted from the bed. The restraints creaked under his strength. He looked at them, then at her. "You tie me down because you are afraid. You should be." The nurse's body shook. She had healed killers, warlords, and criminals. Yet no one had ever spoken to her like this. Calm, confident, even while broken. The human leaned his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Tell me, do they plan to dissect me?" Her silence was answer enough. His faint smile returned, sharper this time. "I thought so." The machines began to beep, picking up the rise in his pulse, in his strength. His body was changing again, faster now. The wounds on his chest knit together while she watched. His muscles tightened, his breath deeper, like a beast waking from hibernation. The nurse whispered, "What are you?" His eyes locked onto hers, and the answer came without hesitation. "Human." The word struck her like a blade, so simple, so ordinary. Yet in that moment, it felt like the most dangerous word in the galaxy. Before she could move, the door hissed open. 2 alien guards stepped inside, weapons ready. They froze when they saw him awake. The human turned his head slowly toward them. His smile vanished. His eyes hardened. "You bring weapons into a sick ward?" he said, voice low but heavy with warning. The guards raised their blasters nervously. The nurse stepped forward, panic in her voice. "No, he is still healing." But the guards did not listen. They had orders. The human's hand clenched into a fist again. His body shook with effort, but he pushed himself upright, ignoring the pain. The restraints tore free with a sharp snap. The machines screamed alarms. The guards staggered back, fear on their faces. They had expected a weak patient. What stood before them looked more like a storm wearing flesh. The nurse's heart thundered. She whispered, "You will kill them." The human turned his head toward her, his expression cold but calm. "Not if they lower their weapons." The guards hesitated. One's hands trembled. The other looked to the nurse, desperate for orders. The nurse could not move, could not think. She could only watch as the truth became clear. This human was no prisoner. No specimen. He was something else. Something the galaxy was not ready to face. The human took a slow breath, his voice carrying through the ward like a verdict. "You wanted to study me, but now, I study you." The guards lowered their weapons, not by choice, but by fear. The nurse stepped back, her body weak with shock. She understood now. This was the moment the whispers would turn into screams, because the human had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The truth of humanity. The alarms had not stopped since the human broke free. The medical ward blazed with red lights, warning sirens echoing across the station. Soldiers rushed through the halls, voices shouting orders, weapons armed. But inside the ward, silence ruled. The human stood tall now, though his body still carried scars and half-healed wounds. The broken restraints hung at his side. His chest rose and fell like a storm waiting to break. The nurse stood frozen, caught between fear and awe. The 2 guards did not move. Their weapons shook in their hands, but they dared not fire. The human's eyes burned into them, sharp as blades, steady as mountains. Then the door hissed open again. This time it was not guards. It was the overseer, an alien commander in dark armor, eyes cold and merciless. "So?" the overseer said slowly, voice dripping with contempt. "The beast has finally opened its eyes." The nurse flinched at the words, but the human only tilted his head slightly, studying the alien like a predator studies prey. "I am not your beast," he said quietly. "I am human." The overseer laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Human? Your kind is a forgotten mistake. A violent relic crawling out of its dirt planet. You are nothing here, nothing but a specimen." The human's faint smile returned, the same smile that had shaken the nurse days before. "If I am nothing, why are you afraid?" The overseer's laughter stopped. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the air itself was listening. The nurse's heart pounded. She could see it, the overseer's claws twitching, his stance tightening. The human's words had pierced deeper than any weapon. The overseer stepped forward. You will be dissected. Your secrets will belong to us, and your Earth will never rise again." The nurse gasped, but the human did not flinch. Instead, he spoke words that chilled every ear in the room. "You think I am alone here? I am not. My people remember. My world remembers. And when they come, you will beg the stars for mercy." The lights flickered as if the station itself trembled. The nurse felt her legs weaken. She knew he wasn't bluffing. She had seen his body heal, seen his strength grow, heard the whispers in his sleep. If one soldier could defy them all, what would happen when millions of his kind arrived? The overseer snarled, raising a weapon. "Then let them come. They will burn like you." The human's eyes narrowed. He took one step forward, still wounded, still scarred, but unstoppable. His voice was calm, almost cold. "No, we do not burn. We endure, and when we rise, worlds fall silent." The overseer hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough for fear to flicker in his eyes. The nurse saw it. Everyone in the room saw it. And in that flicker, the truth became clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. The human's chest lifted, and with a voice that seemed too strong for his broken body, he declared, "Tell your high command this. Humanity does not surrender. Not today. Not ever." The overseer froze. The guard stepped back. And the nurse for the first time realized what she was truly witnessing. Not a patient. Not a specimen. But the first spark of a storm that would soon sweep across the stars. The human stood there, bloodied but unbroken, his defiance filling the ward like fire. And far beyond the walls of that station, somewhere across the endless dark Earth might already be listening. The nurse whispered to herself, voice shaking with awe and terror, "The galaxy will never be the same.